We are 6 rounds down on the 2021 calendar and already we're chatting about just how competitive this season is. It is a breath of fresh air compared to some of the Mercedes domination we've all seen in recent years. We have a challenger again. But how competitive is it? Can we visualise this in some way to get a feel for the shape of the competitiveness of the championship? Yes, we certainly can. And yes, we certainly can is the attitude you'll see among the millions of creative people who come together to learn and develop their skills and passions on Skillshare. While Skillshare might not have a class on how to create banging segues like that, it does offer thousands of inspiring classes for people looking to develop their creative and or entrepreneurial skills, whether they're starting from the very beginning, like I once was with After Effects, or whether they're looking to take things to the next level, like I am constantly with After Effects. Most classes are under 60 minutes and broken down neatly so you can fit them into your schedule whether you're a busy bee or have the time to binge learn. If you fancy getting better at video editing and want to use Premiere Pro like I do, you might find it an overwhelming app at first, so why not try Jordi Vanderput's great class for beginners on the very subject. Premium Skillshare members get access to this class and thousands of others for less than $10 a month. And Skillshare are offering the first 1,000 viewers a free 1-month trial of Skillshare when they visit the link in the description. Thank you, Skillshare. And now, Marty, back to 2021. After the first 6 rounds, the points of the top 10 look a little like this. We've got Max Verstappen right up front here on 105 points, with Lewis Hamilton right behind on 101. Perez and Norris are in 3rd and 4th respectively, with 69 and 66 points, just 3 apart. And the whole top 10 spans a range of just 79 points, with only one gap between 2 drivers bigger than a race victory. This 32-point gap here between 2nd and 3rd place. Compared to the same point last year, the leader had a 37-point gap to 2nd place, and the whole top 10 was spread over a much larger 112 points. In 2020, after 6 rounds, we'd already accepted that Hamilton had won the title. It wasn't even a question. This year, we've got no idea who'll win the next race, let alone who'll grab the championship in the end. And we can look back further, across every season right back to 2010 when the current point system came into effect. We can see quite clearly the variety in the shape of the championship after just 6 rounds. 2010, for example, was by far the most competitive opening 6 of the last 12 seasons. The leaders, Vettel and Webber, were on equal points. The whole top 8 were within 1 win, 25 points, of the leader. The whole top 10 were spread by just 58 points, with Schumacher in his first season out of retirement finding it a little trickier than his teammate in 8th. Now, we've not had a runaway leader as extreme as Vettel was in 2011, with him creeping up on double the points of his nearest challenger at the time in Hamilton. This is vastly different to the season before, with Vettel leaving 4 cars battling for 2nd and everyone else just fighting for scraps. The whole top 10 was spread out over 124 points. 2012, of course, snapped back into some serious competition, with the entire top 10 crammed into a 54-point space, the smallest we've seen at round 6 in the current points era. And this was largely thanks to seeing 6 different winners across the first 6 races, with a 7th to immediately follow. No other season has seen so many different victors so early on, and the title looked genuinely contestable by 4 different drivers at this point. The hybrid era began in 2014, an era we associate with uncompetitiveness and the runaway domination of Mercedes. And while we clearly see the 2 Merc drivers a galaxy ahead of the drivers from other teams, the battle between them was compelling all season long, as the round 6 snapshot alludes to. After 6 races, these 2 were as close as Max and Lewis are today. And the top 2 haven't been this close after 6 races since 2014, though in 2017 this 21-point lead was held by Vettel, not the eventual champion Hamilton. Now we can fast forward these graphics to the end of their seasons to show the final top 10 positions at the close of their championships. Again, 2010 and 2012 stand out as ultra-close seasons following on from the tight-looking snapshot of 6 races in. 2014 was actually much closer than the final tally appears. Hamilton and Rosberg were just 17 points apart going into the finale, but a win for Hamilton and a mechanical problem for Rosberg in a race serving up double points meant Hamilton took a 50-point swing over his rival in one race, explaining this massive-looking 67-point gap, which isn't very representative. Now, obviously, we can't effectively extrapolate these 6 races from 2021 over the next 17 races, but we can start by normalizing all these graphics. So let's try this. This is what the season's final top 10s look like if we ask what percentage of the champions' points each driver took. So if we look at 2010, Vettel was champion and so obviously sets the bar for 100%. Alonso was 4 points behind him, which works out at Alonso having 98 and a bit percent of Vettel points. Jensen scored 84% of Vettel's points and Massa only 56%, and so on. 2010 actually ended with 5 drivers within 20% of the leader's final points tally, which hasn't happened since. I mean, what a season, honestly. In fact, only once since 2010 have even 3 drivers ended up inside this range, in 2017 with Vettel and Bottas. And worryingly, in the same time period, we can count 5 occasions in which the main rival to the champion couldn't even finish within 20% of the overall winner. Okay, so we can look at 2021 after 6 rounds and visualise it in this percentage format. We set Max to 100%, and so Hamilton sits at 96% of Max's points, Perez at 66%, Norris at 63%, Leclerc at 50%, and so on. So now we ask, is this indicative of where things might go? Will this basic shape of the spread of points be similar to the final spread by the season end? Can we expect Max and Lewis to be close to each other but miles away from this fairly competitive midfield by the final tally? Okay, so let's go back to the round 6 scores for the top 10 drivers but move them into the normalized format, showing each driver's points as a percentage of the contemporary leader so we can shadow them against the end of season results. We can now trace lines between where we were at round 6 to where we finished up to see if the gaps widened, tightened, or stayed relatively similar. Now remember, I'm just looking at positions, not the whomst of who was in those positions. So as we said earlier in 2017, Vettel was leading after round 6, but Hamilton was the championship leader by the end. But I'm just looking to study the gaps irrespective of who sits in them, which will occasionally need some contextualization as we will see. If we focus on the top 2, we can see their closeness after round 6 does tend to forecast a similar closeness by the season's end. As mentioned, in 2014 it all fell apart very quickly and with exaggerated effect for Nico Rosberg at the very end. He and Lewis stayed very much in the 90 to 99% range of each other right through from round 6 to the final race. 2017 is obviously quite interesting because while the percentage gap appears pretty similar between round 6 and round 20, Hamilton did actually overcome the difference to Vettel and effectively flipped it around on him. So you could easily call this more competitive than the gaps here suggest, or you could say the gaps do a good job of showing how the strengths between the two teams showed themselves in different halves of the seasons. Ferrari at first half, Mercedes in the second. Visualization does often require context for the full picture, and maybe more on this in a sec. 2016 also sticks out as Hamilton, in second place on both occasions, actually completely wiping out this early lead from Rosberg. So in this case, the round 6 snapshot is not particularly predictive of what was to come. Otherwise, I do think these round 6 shadows do give a reasonable indication of the shape of the season to come, especially between the top 2. But do seasons actually shape out evenly and neatly as the races pass? Like if we look at last season, 2020, look at the top 10 in the championship after every single round in this same normalised way, we can see that after some initial volatility, the gaps seem pretty static and predictive. P2 stays about this percent away from P1 right through the year. P3 holds fairly steady at around 60% and 4th place at around 30-something%. We can look at round 6 in hindsight and say, yeah, in 2020 this was a reasonable snapshot of the season to come. Looking way back to 2010 though, and it looks a lot more volatile through the year as all this lot here were fighting with each other for the title. But actually there is consistency from round 6 onwards once you apply a bit of context. The top 5 do have a fair bit of movement, but they're swapping places with each other. But if we look at them as a whole, and yeah, the top 5 mostly stay within this band. 6th, 7th and 8th positions all live in their own band a little bit further back from 5th, but don't, for the most part, do anything particularly wild in terms of spread. And then there's this big gap that stay pretty consistent down to 9th and 10th. Round 6 sets the scene for the spread of our drivers, if not the actual order. Now, 2014 clearly shows us the closeness between Hamilton and Rosberg even as they occasionally open gaps to each other. We have a particularly large gap back to 3rd place, which Ricciardo makes his own, and then a tight squabble for 4th to 8th, which again holds pretty consistently across the year. We don't see massive discrepancy between the round 6 championship table and the rest of the year. Now, I've said we'll look at 2016 and 2017 some more as they are a little bit more complicated. In 2016, Rosberg had quite the early run on Hamilton by round 6, but Hamilton did close it up and actually did overtake Rosberg for the title lead by round 11, losing it again by round 15. Meanwhile, a gap developed between 5th and 6th place that wasn't really visible by round 6. So in this case, maybe round 6 didn't give us a good look forward, but by round 9 or 10 we became much more aligned with how the season spread would look. And looking on to 2017, we get to see the Hamilton-Vettel switcheroo. By round 6, Vettel has built quite a lead over Hamilton, who has only 81% of Vettel's points haul. But Lewis and Hamilton battle hard across the year, with Hamilton eventually grabbing the lead in the championship at round 13 and managing to open an unchallengeable gap over Vettel before the end of the year. Other than 3rd place, closing up to the leaders and moving away from the midfield, the spread is actually pretty similar from round 6 to the final results, but it doesn't show how the leaders fought pretty hard for the title, as it kind of looks like the leader keeps an arm's length rather than it showing the dance between the two of them across the year. It is most interesting looking at the battle at the front, as that's what people are interested in, isn't it? That's the main story. So if we look at 2010, for example, we can clearly see that after round 4, the 2nd place driver is never holding less than 90% of the leading driver's points. If we compare this to 2014, we see 2nd place is only within 10% of the leader's points 12 times, where runs of good performance allow the leader to build a formidable gap occasionally. In 2017, there are only 7 occasions where the 2nd place driver is within 10% of the leader. And last year, it only happened once after round 3 as Hamilton stole the title lead from Bottas, who had had a good run in the early races. So the 2021 season is progressing in a way that suggests a strong 2-horse race up front far removed from the rest of the pack. Though the calamities of Baku have made it even tighter than it might have been. If Hamilton hadn't accidentally hit the wrong settings and burked it off at the restart, he probably would have won the race and stretched out a leading gap that would have had us quite worried for the competitiveness to come. And if Verstappen's tyre hadn't failed at all and instead he'd led Hamilton home in Baku, he would have had a slightly more comfortable lead going into round 7. As it is, it's wafer thin at the top, with Perez and Norris enjoying a significantly more cosy place among the top 10 than they might have. But for an accident or two, we may have projected very different ideas about how the rest of the year might look, despite knowing Red Bull looks stronger than they have in 7 years. So yes, chaos, error, brilliance and fierce development have made 2021 exciting, competitive and unpredictable, which is a miracle considering these cars are heavily stymied in terms of development from last year. We were all expecting a repeat of 2020, but instead, somehow, we get this. Joy of joys. Now, do we need to cancel those 2022 wrecks?